The lush bed seemed to engulf you in blankets and linen while you spent your time away on your phone, entertained by the game you were playing. You were one for otome, dating sims, but for a while now, 3 months in fact, you've been hooked by the characters. They almost felt so real in their conversation and interactions with one another that you could have sworn this was a real chat room. It was nearing the end of the afternoon, the sun peeking its last rays of its light through your large bedroom windows. In fact, aside from the occasional stroll outside in the compound's garden, or just making your way through the halls, you didn't quite get the lay of the land of this place. For such a large building, it felt so empty, except for the visits from... You perked your eyes from your phone towards your bedroom door, sitting up from the bed and switching the screen off so as to not distract you.
"Come in,"
you called, allowing your visitor permission to enter.
"Traveler?"
spoke a soft voice. There stood Ray, still immaculate in his suit, with a soft smile on his face.
"Have I interrupted you?"
"Not at all,"
you replied, waving your phone next to you.
"Just still testing for bugs."
That soft smile of his grew into a joyous grin, his eyes smiling along with them while he chuckled.
"You've been nothing but supportive of my work,"
he reassured, seating himself next to you by the bed.
"Please take some time to rest. I don't want you straining your eyes over it."
You smiled at his insistence. Since entering this building and staying in this room, you've only been speaking with Ray and no one else. He had spoken of others in this vicinity and how busy his schedule was like, but you had not seen another soul. There had been nights where you felt the urge to discover the place, wander alone, but Ray had warned you countless times.
"But you should be proud,"
you motioned, shifting in the bed.
"These AIs feel so real. I'm actually starting to think that they are."
"Yes, they've been my best work,"
he replied.
"I'm glad you're enjoying the game, but please don't get too attached to them. After all, they're just playthings."
"Playthings?"
Another light-hearted chuckle erupted from Ray's throat, his smile returning tenfold.
Don't mind me. I call my creations such things sometimes. I haven't had the best sleep trying to perfect them for your enjoyment.
He pinched the bridge of his nose, straining against the little light that shone from your large bedroom windows. You looked into his eyes, noticing the exhaustion in them and even the start of some eye bags underneath his cyan orbs.
"Ray, are you okay?"
you asked, placing your hand on his shoulder. Immediately you felt his hand grab onto yours, startling you at first before he gently held on to it.
"I'm fine, truly,"
he reassured again, holding onto your hand.
"Just knowing that you're happy is all that matters."
The warmth of his gloved hands held onto yours while he rubbed circles with his thumb. A small comfort. There was a smile still on his face, but it looked rather weak, tired most likely from your first impression of his demeanor. At first, he admitted that he needed some medication to keep himself in check, but lately, his behavior was growing more unstable. He had apologized for some of his more sharp turns, but it grew more frequent. Over the course of your stay, You noticed he began to act strangely, to the point you would receive strange text messages from him throughout the day. They seemed off-kilter.
Still,
spoke Ray, pulling you from your train of thought.
dinner should be ready soon. I came to properly take you out to the garden so that we could enjoy some fresh air.
Oh, thanks, I guess.
You replied.
My pleasure. Come.
Still with your hand in his, Ray gently pulled you from the bed, leading you out from your room. You noticed there was something strange in his movements. Though he held on to you with a gentle hand, his motions were erratic. It was like a side of him he tried to suppress, and it made you wonder about his condition the more the days passed by. Maybe it was a byproduct of his lack of sleep, his dedication to his game, but the more he texted and said strange things, the more you began to worry. Eventually, the both of you walked out into the beautiful garden you had come to learn more about in this compound. You remembered how at first the flower beds were mesmerizing, but now, learning more about Ray's favorites, along with the others, made it for a very nice experience outside of your bedroom walls. The evening light dispersed, making way for the luminescence of the flowers to take shape in the garden. With Ray leading you through, you approached the center of it. There stood a table set out with candlelight and food already prepared. You were surprised that it was still warm, looking around to locate any caterers, if there were any. Ray chuckled at your expression while he brought you to the table, pulling out one of the chairs for you.
Thank you.
You spoke, seating yourself by the table before he took his seat opposite you.
It looks amazing.
I hope it's to your liking. I've actually asked the chefs to make something that is both delicious and nutritious.
Sounds a bit cliché.
You commented, before you noticed the hurt in Ray's eyes.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to.
It's alright,
he reassured, his saddened eyes disappearing and replaced by happier ones.
I'm glad that I made a joke. Please, eat.
He motioned towards the dishes already plated up on the table, grabbing his cutlery and getting a head start on his meal. You too began to indulge before your thoughts returned about his health.
Ray, are you sure you're okay?
You asked again, catching his attention from dinner.
Of course, traveler, he replied joyously. I'm enjoying your company. It's always the time of the day that I look forward to the most.
But you sound so exhausted.
You commented. It wasn't much of a secret anymore about his odd behavior every now and then.
Please, don't worry yourself over me, he insisted. Like I said, I'm perfectly fine.
So, what about your recent text messages?
Didn't anyone tell you never to discuss personal matters at the dinner table?
He questioned with a slightly sinister undertone before a loose smirk appeared on his lips.
Unless you want to be intimate with someone who is actually here.
The change was so sudden you couldn't tell when he started or ended. The tone in his voice took you by surprise, compounded by the sudden shift in his gaze on you. As you stared into his once docile eyes, you saw a hunger in them, and it wasn't for dinner. Was it jealousy? You held this gaze of this game of cat and mouse for quite some time, with the moonlight cascading across the garden. The luminescence of the flowers only emphasized that hunger in his cyan eyes while he stared at you. Before you noticed his smirk drop, and a mortified expression across his features. He uttered breaths of panic, and if you didn't know any better, he looked upset.
I'm so sorry,
he cried.
I didn't mean to be so rude. Please, forgive me. I planned tonight to be just perfect.
His cries were interjected with panicked breaths while his hands hid his face, his shoulders hunched as if he would be able to grow small and hide away from you. You watched him almost on the verge of tears before you carefully reached a hand out to him and gently held onto his own.
It's okay,
you reassured, watching his bright yet tired eyes look back at you.
I should ask you when you're comfortable. I'm just worried about you, that's all.
You felt Ray's hand clutch onto yours, holding your palm into his cheek and nuzzling into its warmth. His lips caressed your palm, as you felt them curl into a warm smile.
Thank you for being understanding,
he murmured, his breath washing over your hand.
That's why I look forward to seeing you every day. You're so kind, thoughtful, and you deserve the best of everything.
With your hand still in his, he brought them back to the table, his now calm demeanor present, and his eyes gazing back at you. You returned his smile with one of your own, grateful that he had calmed down. Most of dinner afterwards went ahead without any qualms. Ray was extremely ecstatic, ensuring that you had a decent meal and that you were comfortable throughout the experience. As soon as the both of you were done, he took you by the hand, offering his arm this time to escort you back to your room. Upon approaching your bedroom door, before you could release your hand from his arm, he tugged onto you, watching his exhausted expression turn to one of bashfulness. You looked up at him, confused, before he brought his hands to your face, cupping your cheeks in his palms. His forehead touched yours. You could feel his breath wash over you in the cold, empty hallway.
I hope you do forgive me,
he whispered, while he looked into your eyes.
I do,
you spoke in return, your hands clutching onto his wrists.
You don't need to explain yourself. I just want you to take care of yourself.
You watched his smile return, weak, but still full of life upon hearing your words.
Maybe I've grown a tolerance to my medication,
he spoke in turn.
I'll need to look into that, because I don't want to lose to them.
Them?
You gazed up at him, curious and confused about what he meant, before you felt him pull you towards him, the touch of his warm lips caressing your forehead.
Just my creations,
he nonchalantly replied.
Jealousy is a fickle thing sometimes.
The tone in his voice from earlier returned, but not so sudden and abrupt. It felt almost calculative, and yet passionate. A contradiction. Just like Ray. However, before you looked up into his eyes, that same tired expression returned, along with his weak smile.
Get some rest, traveler,
he spoke as he opened the door to your room.
I'll see you tomorrow.
With that, you entered your dimly lit room, hearing the door shut from behind. His shift in behavior was becoming frequent, but tonight had proved that point for you. It was becoming concerning. You made your way to your bed, quickly changing into something comfortable before you noticed your phone on the bedside table. Normally, you would check his app to see what new things were in store, but tonight, you decided to skip that and head into bed. You only hoped Ray would be okay. After sending you off into your room, Ray stood outside the door, his back leaning into it while his thumb rubbed his lips. It was a shock to him. He actually kissed you. Perhaps not the traditional kiss, but a kiss nonetheless. He knew he did something wrong. He could feel his true self return, his wants, his needs, and it was going to ruin everything that he worked hard for. He knew he was growing a tolerance for a long while now. The episodes were growing closer together, that over the course of your stay, he grew scared and wary of his actions. Scared to know how long until he couldn't keep himself in control. He pinched the bridge of his nose, cursing under his breath.
They could easily be mine,
he whispered with a growl.
Easy for the taking.
He shook his head, his tired eyes staring at his gloved hands while he questioned.
No, I feel that way, but I shouldn't act on it.
He continued to whisper.
I need to take my medication.
He walked away from your bedroom door, turning only once to see it again as if he were committing the image to memory. A weak smile appeared on his lips, remembering your words, before he made his trek through the hallway, looking for another dose to keep himself in line. That was all he needed.